All right. It looks as though our participant count is leveling out. Again, my name is Dan Rubin. I'm our Director of School Counseling here at Newton South. It is my pleasure to be joining our counseling staff, as well as our Vice Principal, Jason Williams, this evening to present to you somewhat of a roadmap of what to expect over the coming months of this 11th grade year, if you are the parent or guardian of an 11th grader. I do want to just share Principal Strauss sent her regrets. She's got a sick household and was not in school today, and unfortunately is not feeling well enough to join us and say a hello this evening. But she sends her regrets and asks that we share that with you. And without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to our Vice Principal, Jason Williams.
Hi, everybody. Jason Williams, Vice Principal. It's so great for you folks to be here this evening, taking time out of your busy evening to be with us. As Dan already mentioned, Tammy unfortunately can't be here tonight. She does send her regards. And, we have an awesome program this evening with our counseling team. And I want to also let folks know that this will be posted, this recording, so this is being recorded right now, will be posted to the NSHS YouTube page, and I'll also put it in this weekend's weekly update as well. So for those of you who are currently here and would like to watch this again, or for those of you who are not here, who I'm currently not talking to, who I will be talking to in a future version of myself, you'll be able to watch it later and view this anytime. But without further ado, I'm going to hand it back to Dan and then hide behind the scenes and control the Zoom.
Great. Thanks very much, Jason. And I do want to acknowledge we're up against some pretty stiff competition tonight. Our boys soccer team is playing a game as we speak, and we wish them luck. And I know our Patriots, at least for those of us who are Patriots fans, are going to be playing this evening. We are recording this. You will hear from most of the counselors this evening. All of us are here, and some of us will be doing some behind the scenes answering of questions. But we're just going to do some quick introductions right now to put names and faces together for everyone. So you've already heard me introduce myself, but I work with seniors who are in our Goldrick House. So I'm actually going to ask our counselors of Goldrick House seniors to start out since I'm already there.
I'll jump in. Hi, I'm Christina Brown. I'm a counselor in the Goldrick House. Jim?
Hi, I'm Jim Medeiros. I am in Goldrick House, but my seniors are in Cutler House. So that's okay, Christina. So I will hand it over to Hay.
Hi, I'm Hey Choi. I have seniors in both Goldrick House and Wheeler House, and I'm going to send this over to Mariam.
Hi everyone, I'm Miriam. I am a school counselor in Cutler House for 9th through 11th, and then I have seniors in Goldrick House, and I'm going to pass it over to Donna.
Hi, everybody. I'm Donna Siegel. I have all of my caseload in Cutler House. I'm going to pass it over to Ari.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ari Kenyon. I'm a guidance counselor in Cutler House and Goodwin House. And so I'm going to pass it over to my Goodwin crew, start with Dave.
Good evening, everyone. Dave Kershaw. I'm a counselor in Goodwin House.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kara Veely, and I'm a counselor in Goodwin House as well.
Hey everyone, thanks for being here. I'm Sarah Style. I'm a counselor in Goodwin House, and I'll pass it over to the Wheeler crew with Miss Limmer.
Hi everyone, I'm Shira Limmer, and I am a counselor in Wheeler House. Aaron, it's up to you.
Aaron, hi everybody. Aaron Lewis, I'm a counselor in Wheeler. All of my kids are in Wheeler. I think that we're done, right? We're going back to Dan.
Well, almost done. We've got the man of the hour who really helps us all to coordinate our programming and runs our college and career center. Danny Hoffman, just want to hand it over to you to say a quick hello.
Hi, everybody. So excited you are joining us today or sometime in the future. I'm Danny Hoffman. I run the College and Career Center. You can always come find me or send me an email and we can find time to connect. Looking forward to answering many, many questions over the next 2 years.
Great. Danny, thank you so much. And, with that, we're going to jump into our program tonight. So I always like to start with just kind of sharing some reflections. things that over the years working with many families, we kind of pick up on about what helps this process move well. So we are super excited that you're joining us this evening. This kind of marks the formal beginning of the post-secondary planning process for your students. I want to thank those of you who are joining us live tonight, but also acknowledge that this presentation is being shared a little bit earlier in the year than we have in the past. So some families might not be ready, feeling ready for this conversation to begin in November. And that is okay if you're watching this at a later date, January or March, or whenever it makes sense for you and your student. Please know that we continue to be here for questions, answers in real time at any point in time. But that sort of fuels the point that we don't expect that all of our 11th graders or their families are at the same stage in thinking about the future at this moment in time. But we do want to be sure that everyone has access to an overview of what lies ahead in a time frame that works for them. So while there's a lot of information to absorb, and probably a lot of emotions that might surface for you, for your children through this process, but the process of envisioning your student's future, I just want to highlight our goals for this evening and this process more broadly. Right? You met and heard from our experienced and caring team of school counselors, and we really approach this as an opportunity to help students and families thoughtfully consider their post-high school planning process in a sensible way and with hopefully a minimum of stress. While tonight's presentation is a common starting point, each individual's pathway forward will be their own. The landscape is ever changing, yet there are some evergreen truths. I've learned supporting students and families through this planning process over more than 20 years, a few tips that I just want to share. Danny, can you jump to the next slide? I'm sorry, no, the where to begin, slide 2. Thank you. Up until now, there's been very little question, and in many ways, very little choice as to what comes next along your student's educational journey. The pathway to 11th grade for many students, for most students, is pretty linear. But now, for the first time in most students' lives, they have the opportunity and the responsibility to write their own script rather than follow a prescribed path. This may evoke different responses depending on your student's temperament, their experience making decisions, and their sense of adventure. This is also a moment where your student asserting their vision for their future might diverge subtly or perhaps substantially from the vision that you have carried for them throughout your life and theirs. This may evoke for you different responses depending on your temperament, your trust in your student's decision making, and your sense of adventure. Just quick editorial sidebar. 4 of us in the department are parenting our oldest through their junior years this year, which is just kind of a fascinating journey where there are a number of us who are living through this for the first time as parents after a career of living this as professionals. So, I always emphasize we are here as a sounding board and as a thought partner to you. But please know that that is the case. Because planning for life beyond Newton South is as much a process of self-discovery for your students as it is the research of colleges or other post-secondary options. And as such, before sort of framing this process as a journey to a destination, it's helpful for students to reflect on the learning experiences in and out of the classroom that bring direction, meaning, and fulfillment to their lives. Can we go to the next slide now? Perfect. In the coming months, as your students progress through this developmental process, it represents far more than whether they will attend school, whether or where they will attend school for the next 4 years. It's about continuing their personal journey towards independence. And nothing will instill more confidence in you that your student is prepared for the independence that the life beyond high school will provide than watching them step outside of their comfort zone, experience new things, take risks, and practice resilience. Have faith and send reinforcing messages that they will get through the stressful moments and be better off for it. You'll hear a great deal of information tonight, some of which you might forget. But if there's one thing that I hope you remember, it's that you don't need to try to make this process perfect. It never will be. Advise, support, encourage your students while asking yourself how you can keep the focus on developing and celebrating their independence and agency. Danny, can we jump forward one more? Just want to share, we are in the process of starting our junior seminars. This is also a little bit earlier than we've done in the past. But the very first round of seminars we'll be leading with juniors starting this month and then continuing forward is going to be just focused on helping them to understand that there are a whole range of options available to them beyond high school. As we get to seminar 2 in January and February, we'll start to get a little bit more focused on some of the complexities around the college pathway for those planning on applying to selective colleges. And as we get into the spring, we'll have another round of seminars when topics are timely, like asking teachers for letters of recommendation and preparing for the summer. But we just want to emphasize that after 11th graders have attended seminars 1 and 2, they can make individual appointments to meet with their school counselor. That'll be right around the start of January. In the interim, if your family feels like you need some advice or an opportunity to connect prior to then in January, please reach out to Danny Hoffman in the College and Career Center. We are here to help support you, guide you, and fit this process to your timeline as best we can. So without any further ado, at this point, I am so excited to turn over the rest of the presentation to our amazing counseling team. I love hearing from them. I'm going to put my parent hat on and listen to the great advice that they have to offer. But without any further ado, Donna, I think you've got the next slide.
I do. Hello, everybody. Thanks for being here tonight. I'm Donna Siegel, and I have the next 2 slides. While Dan already mentioned that the path through high school and to the next step is not always linear for everybody, we are going to be talking a bunch tonight about the next steps in terms of like the college process. So while there are many different post-secondary options for our high school students, tonight we'll focus in this presentation on action steps and resources as it pertains to attending a 4-year college track. That said, please know we are not limited to supporting students only through the college application process. And these are some of the options that we work with our students, making recommendations as 4-year college path, 2-year college, community college. Some students choose to pursue a gap year. Some students choose to go to work. Some students engage in vocational technical school training. And we have some students who do opt for military. And then there's specialized post-grad education, which usually entails and includes like a 13th year or a time when students really feel like they need an extra year to shore up their skills, and or sometimes that's a good idea for students who are athletes and want to compete in college athletics. It gives them another opportunity to be seen and recruited. Thanks, Danny. This slide goes over the roles and responsibilities. We are a team, and we collaborate and support our students from here on in to when they graduate and cross that stage. And so we just break down, this slide breaks down the roles and responsibilities. I like to start with the students, and that's the first column there. So the student's role is to continue to do their best academic work through junior year. We want them to be active, lead the process and set the pace. Schedule meetings with counselors plural, meaning they're assigned school counselor and Mr. Hoffman. We encourage them to engage in research. We expect them to be active, using SCORE once they're comfortable with it, attending college fairs, maybe going on some college tours if possible, and also taking advantage of our rep visits in the building, which I think someone will talk about a little bit later. We also hope that students will be we'll be talking to them about building relationships with teachers who might write their recommendations, and someone is going to talk about that later too. And we're always encouraging kids to connect with their community and join clubs that align with their interests, so they can figure out what they really like to do, and that may help them to figure out what they're looking for in a college community. We also hope that students might, consider getting a job. or pursue some other form of experiential learning outside of the school academic curriculum. The family's role is to support students, communicate openly in a way that works for you and your child, offer perspective and support without judgment, provide insights on options and limitations. We mean could be geographical limitations, financial limitations. It costs a lot of money to go to college. And so just thinking about your child's development and where they are and what they might be ready for in, the next, 16 to 18 months. Also, we hope families will help students stay organized if your child will let you help them and stay on top of deadlines. There's lots of deadlines. And we'll talk more specifically about those sort of nuts and bolts next year in the fall. We would love you to let us know if you have any questions or concerns, share those with us, reach out to us. You can also reach out about financial aid, which, is something that families usually fill out financial aid forms. And the counselor's responsibility is to support the entire process from beginning to end, much like we support kids in the earlier years of high school. So we provide a lot of support and coaching in terms of just trying to make sure kids stay on a timeline, helping them to develop balanced lists of colleges that are reasonable. We help them learn how and familiarize themselves with utilizing SCORE and the many tools that they can employ to do research. And we also will help them from beginning to end with the entire application process. Also, many of us are open to reading essays. Kids often will ask us to read essays and give some feedback. And we also can help with financial aid and directing students to specific scholarships. And basically, we provide support throughout the whole process. So I'm glad you're here tonight. And I think I'm passing it off to my colleague, Ari.
Thank you, Donna. So now I'm going to provide a brief overview of components of the application process. We will talk later in the year with you and students more specifically about each component. So again, this is just a brief overview. The first 5 bullets are parts of the application that are evaluated by an admissions committee. So starting with the academic profile, which includes the transcript, so what classes your student took throughout high school, their GPA, and then standardized test scores. Most schools remain test optional, so not all students choose to submit standardized test scores. Second is the personal statement. Third are supplemental essays. Not all colleges require supplemental essays, but it is good to be aware that some do require students to submit shorter, additional college-specific essays. Fourth are student activities. So that is the list of activities, whether that is clubs, sports, art, theater, music programs, jobs that students have held in high school. And again, it's activities both in and out of school. And lastly are recommendation letters. So that will include teacher recommendation letters and a recommendation from the guidance counselor. Some students may choose to get an outside recommendation from a coach or leader of their choral program, for example, but those are not required. So again, the first 5 are what admissions evaluates. And we did want to mention financial aid because that is an important part of the overall application. And financial aid applications and college applications are due at the same time. And now I'm passing it off to Christina.
Right. Sorry. So I'm going to start to talk about college terminology. So I'm going to talk about different college admissions. So we'll start with regular admissions. Typically, this is January to February deadlines, and you can apply to as many schools as you'd like. Later, we'll talk about kind of limiting that amount, but it's open to as many as you'd like. Rolling admissions. This really runs the whole scope of the college admissions process. So they can start as early as September and then go through the springtime. So if you're applying to a school that offers rolling admissions, you may apply and then hear back within, a matter of weeks, 4 to 6 weeks or something like that. So if a school does that, it's great to hear back right away and apply sooner than later. But again, many schools will have it late into the spring as well. Early action. A lot of schools we see that offer early action start November 1st, but sometime around that timeline. This is starting the application process early, but it's not a binding contract. So you submit your application early and you generally hear about your admission decisions, before the regular decision deadlines. The next one's going to be restrictive early action. So some schools offer this as well. So you apply early, but the college you can apply to other places, but the college restricts where else you can apply. So some Ivy League schools offer this, and then they'll say that you could apply to other state schools, but not other private schools. And again, well, I didn't say this, but the college determines whether what they're offering, if that's early decision, restrictive early action, etc. And then we come to early decision or early decision 2. Early decision is for your top choice school. So this is the school that you're like, this is the one I really want to try for. It's a binding agreement between you, the college, your family, and your school counselor. So you all have to sign this agreement when you decide that you want to apply. So early decision 1 is the earliest application process. And then early decision 2 comes out a little bit later. So say you don't get into your early decision 1, then you can apply for your early decision 2 school if that's what you decide. Again, it's binding, so you can't withdraw your application once you get in. And then you want to make sure that you are not continuing to apply after that to other schools. All right, I think I'm passing it back to Ms. Kenyon.
Thank you, Christina. I'm going to review some standardized testing terminology. We'll start with the SAT and the ACT. Our recommendation is that students do sit for one of these exams, and really recommend that a student takes the exam twice. And this is because most colleges will super score, meaning that they will take the highest scores of each section of the test and make that the cumulative score that they will evaluate. Of course, as we're going to talk about, schools are test optional. So you may take the SAT or ACT and then choose not to submit, and that is okay. If for your student, it's going to be a challenge or cause extreme stress to take the SAT or ACT, you don't have to take it. We would just then recommend that your student only look at test optional schools. The TOEFL, a test of English as a foreign language, is an exam for students whose first language is not English. In addition to the TOEFL, Duolingo also offers a similar test, which is a great option. It's less expensive, and you can do it from the comfort of your own home as long as you have access to a computer and internet. For any of the tests I just mentioned, there are fee waivers or fee reduction vouchers available. So if your family needs financial assistance with any of these tests, please don't hesitate to reach out to your student's counselor. And lastly is the ASVAB, Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery. This is a standardized test focused on science, math, and language that the U.S. military, if you choose to join, would use to determine what career or role would best fit your student. We've talked about this a lot. So test optional, this just means that colleges give the student the option to submit their standardized test scores or not. And if you can submit your scores, and if you do, those will most likely be evaluated by the college. Some colleges are also test flexible, meaning that they will allow students to submit AP scores in lieu of their SAT or ACT scores. Some schools are test blind, meaning that they will not look at standardized test scores at all as part of the application evaluation. So if you submit them, colleges will truly not look at them. And then there are schools that do require you to submit an SAT or ACT. As you can see, there's a lot of variety here. So what we recommend is that for whatever schools your student chooses to apply to, is definitely check the school's website and see what their standardized testing policy is. Financial aid terminology. So starting with the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. This is, if you are looking for need-based financial aid, you must complete and submit the FAFSA. This is something that we strongly encourage all of our families to apply for, and that application will become available in October. Similarly, there's the CSS profile. It's similar, but it's a bit more comprehensive compared to the FAFSA, and it's primarily used by private colleges, and that document also becomes available in October. So as I talked about before, like if a student is applying to a school in November, like November 1st, for example, you want to make sure you're completing both of these forms at the same time. Moving on to the SAI, Student Aid Index. This is the number that the government thinks your family can contribute to tuition. You won't get this number until you complete and submit your FAFSA or until it's processed. The institutional SAI is the number that a particular college thinks you can contribute to tuition, and that is based on the specific methodologies that college is using to calculate family contribution. And now I'm going to hand it off to Danny, who's going to talk about SCORE.
Right. Yeah. All right. So Score is one of my favorite tools. I spend way too much time into it. We had a little fun with this slide. Apparently, Score is actually Irish Gaelic. It means to kind of exit or transition from one phase to another, which is apt that this is a tool we will use to help us transition into the next phase of our lives as high school students. Last year, most sophomores were introduced to it, and hopefully they learned how to log in with Google. They added an updated email and invited some families. If you haven't done it yet, that's totally okay. We will do that as a part of the first junior seminar. It's a really powerful tool. It's a great way for you to kind of learn more about what exists out there. So I want to highlight a couple of other things that we'll kind of go through as a part of this process. Families, as you create an account, I'm going to show you some of these little steps that you can take to continue to do some of the research as well. So one of my favorite things is the self-reflection, the self-assessments that we can do. This will be one of them we will do, or we have done for a lot of the sophomores. We did the career interest assessments last year. This is an assessment that kind of says, do you think you would like fixing a car? Scale of 1 to 5. 1 is like, yeah, that sounds awful. And then 5 is like, oh, wow, that sounds really, really cool. I'd really like to work with my hands, right? There's about 60 questions, and then it'll match you with some potential career pathways. One thing I love about this is you can do it as many times as you'd like, because sometimes we recognize as we go through our high school experience, as we go through life, our interests evolve. So it's definitely something I encourage folks, if they did it as a sophomore, go back, take a look, see what your results were, save a couple of the career pathways that it suggested for you, and then retake the assessment. Principles use is a little bit longer of an assessment. It's really kind of more like a Myers-Briggs, where it identifies personalities of students and helps them think about, what types of teams or programs would be really helpful for you. How would you engage in the work, right? Who are you in the workplace? And then similarly, we'll connect you with potential career pathways and majors. We are going to be continuing to offer workshops that kind of go through these as a part of optional training. So if any students are interested in that, those are starting next Wednesday, Win 1. I'll be doing a career exploration workshop. We'll start by doing the career interest assessment, and then the following 2 weeks, we'll actually use those results to check out some of those career pathways using virtual reality. So everybody, once you have an account, can create a college search on Score. It's pretty simple. You log in, you'll go to your home page and say, hello, Danny, right? Then you scroll over from there, you see the little home tab there to discover. You click discover. It's going to take you over to a wide range of things that you can discover, from career pathways to colleges, right? And then you'll go ahead and click on all filters, and it's going to give you a breakdown of all the different possible things that you could filter to find your search for your college process. It's up to you to define like what is most important in what you want out of your college. Some of it's really simple to think about. Like you visit a college campus, you're like, wow, this is really beautiful. It's in green space. I love that. I love nature. I want to make sure that I'm in nature. And so you say, I don't want to be in a city, right? And then some of it will be a little bit more nuanced. So this is a really good starting place. But we really encourage you, as you start to filter through it, think about what's important to you, what you really like, what your values are. then shift to some of the more nuanced questions where you're engaging on campus, talking to students about what is it like to be a student here? What am I doing outside of the classroom that's going to be really fulfilling for me? You know, academically, yes, you're in classes, 5 hours a day, maybe in a college, sometimes more, sometimes less. But that's, there's 24 hours in a day, so 19 hours of the day. What are the other things that are being really bringing you joy in your life? And so we want you to think a little bit about that as you kind of start to do the college search. And now I'm going to pass it over to Jim, who's going to talk a little bit more about this thing called College List and program and career list development.
Thanks, Danny. Hi, this is Jim Medeiros here. How are you? Welcome, everyone. I'm here to just talk a little bit about the college and program list development. When it comes to finalizing a list, we recommend that students apply to 6 to 12 colleges. And that list includes a range of schools, including stretch schools, target schools, and likely or high confidence schools. We look at stretch schools as highly selective schools where the chances of admission are less than 30%, where your GPA and scores align with admissions averages, or if the student's grades and test scores are below the averages of accepted students. And we recommend that students' final lists include about 2 to 4 of those stretch schools. Target schools are schools that the admit rates are about 30 to 70%, and where the student's GPA and scores are in line with the admissions averages. So when it comes to target schools, we recommend that students choose about 3 to 6. The other school are the likely or high confidence schools, schools with admit rates of greater than 70%, where students' GPA and scores align with or are higher than those admissions averages. And so when it comes to those likely or high confidence schools, we recommend that students apply to 2 to 3. So when all is said and done, when, after the students go through the process of, finalizing their list when they are moving into senior year, there really is, it's unnecessary to really have more than 6 to 12 schools. We've all run across students who will have far more than that. And I think sometimes, anxiety will drive students to choose more than they need to. And it really is, it really isn't needed if the college list is well considered and students consider developing a list based on this criteria. Next slide, please. The vocational list considerations, we recommend that students choose for 5 to 7 programs. So the way we look at those are the stretch, the target, and the high confidence programs. And we define those in different ways. The stretch programs are union or apprenticeship positions. And these are often very highly competitive and require long-term planning, including building relationships with specific unions, gaining specific training or experience. Many of these programs have a limited application window, like 4 weeks in January, for example. Target programs are often seen as these pre-apprenticeship programs, and they are short-term. They pay students and provide a stepping stone towards union roles. And then there are the high confidence programs with direct admission, such as the Peterson School or a community college with training programs. For example, Mass Bay Community College has a wonderful automotive program. So those are a direct admission, considered a high confidence program. So when it comes to any of these considerations, finalizing a college list or a vocational list considerations, please reach out to your guidance counselor and as well as to Danny. We can help you and guide you in coming up with a well-considered list for students and their options beyond high school. And now I turn it back to Danny.
All right, so we're almost done. I did want to take a moment to highlight the College and Career Center. It's right next to the cafeteria. So many, many juniors walk by me every single day and not realize that I am there and I'm a resource for you. Every fall, folks come and be like, oh, I didn't know this place is here. So it's a really cool spot. Come check it out, especially during those wind blocks. We're offering really specific workshops that will help you figure out a little bit more about who you are and what you want to do. In the spring, we'll be offering workshops on a wide range of topics, from building lists to career exploration and essay building or essay writing. Um, in the fall, we'll host over 100 colleges over the course of September and October. So it's another great space where you can come and chat with the missions reps, learn more about schools and programs that might be a great fit for you. And it's also a space where we can meet one-on-one, right? It's a great quiet workspace too. So if you have a free block and you need a place to do some work, come in, get to know me, sit down, do some well, just free homework, but do some work anyway. Also, I wanted to highlight that every week I've been sending out Parent Square posts. Please, I know you get inundated with them, but flag them. I try to really keep it specific to the time frame that we're going through, giving you resources to continue to support your research, to continue to support families as they go through the process, giving you hopefully mostly free resources. So keep an eye out for those every single week. I will continue to post those, and that's also going to be a lot as we get into the fall. I'll have really specific reminders about, hey, don't forget to assign your recommenders. These are the steps that you need to go through to track your applications as they go through that process. So please just make it a habit every Friday. I try to keep it at the same time. Um, Open up that little thing, just skim through it, save it for later, and then come back when you can read it. So that's pretty much the keys. I think one thing we often note as we go through this process, it can be really fun. It can be some folks they get really anxious, and I think just take a moment to take a breath, right? Um, Thinking about where you're going to find your joy on a college campus or in a career trade program is equally important to understanding like what it takes to get into that place. So take some time, take some beats. Junior year can be really, really fun. Hopefully you're working on developing a really balanced schedule and talking to your school counselors about, what's the balanced academic course load for me? How can I really make sure that I'm building time in for myself so I can do the things that are really important to me? So please take time to be present with your family, especially as we go into this holiday season. So that's all we have for slides, but I imagine there may be some questions. So we'll be here for a while to answer as many as we can. I'm going to stop sharing so you can see our faces. And heads up, counseling team, your faces may become the focal point. Just makes it easier so that I can actually see the questions as they come in.
Thank you, Danny. And I just want to draw attention to the Q&A button that attendees should see available. So if anyone would like to submit questions, you can type them right in, and we will get to really all of them that we are able to.
Mm-hmm.
So the question was if we could just open up the college and program slide again. So I think that is referring to the slide at the beginning with the list of, or is it perhaps the person who submitted that question could confirm if the slide that's being shown right now is the one you were referring to, or if you meant at the beginning of the slideshow with all of the different options. And Danny, do you want to answer live the question about just how families would make an appointment with you?
Yes. So in my Parent Square post, I include links to my booking page. So families can click on that link and find a time that works for them. Please let me know if it's for you or the student, right? If you're going to be there, and if you'd like to be in person or online. Students can make appointments by coming to find me using the same link that I share out in the Parent Square post. I also have QR codes up throughout the school, as well as in all of the house offices.
Um, There is a question, Miss Choi. I think it looks like you're planning on responding.
No, I just figure that we should answer that live because it is
Okay.
probably something that families are wondering about. If so in SCORE, there are scattergrams available that reference other South graduates who have applied to a certain school with the GPA and standardized test scores on them. We do not have the national reference point, however, on SCORE, I believe.
Yes, I believe that feature will turn on in the spring once we spend a little bit more time developing what are your values? What's really important to you in a college? What, where in the country or the world do you want to go? All the other components rather than zeroing in on like what's the selectivity, where, let's focus first on like where do you want to, what type of experience do you want to have? What type of training do you need? And then in the spring, we'll work on refining the list, and then that's where some of that data will start to become really, really useful.
I'm seeing a question. Can you tell us more about resources for kids who are wanting to start work immediately? And Danny, this might be a nice opportunity to again just highlight the win block opportunities for
Yeah,
pathways.
so I would definitely have them swing by next week on Wednesday. We're starting our kind of a career exploration workshop where they will do some we'll do an activity where they work with some other students to think about what they're good at, what they like, what type of work they might enjoy. And then they'll get to try some hands-on programs using virtual reality. And that actually is a range of whether you want to go to work right away, maybe become an EMT or a carpenter, or a windmill technician, right? Or if I want to become a financial advisor or a doctor, right? There's a range of experiences in there. We also um, have in the spring a career kind of we call it an expo, right? It's just an opportunity to engage with current employers who are both hiring current high school students, or like the unions come, the firefighters come, and they can talk a little bit more about how do you find your way into this career pathway, right? Most people who want to work right away are still going to require some sort of training to get to the career pathway you want, right? So if you want to become a firefighter, there's actually you can technically like you still need to go to college, right? There's still a program. It's just a different structures, right? So some of that is learning about like, what are those types of work experiences you're excited by, and how can we kind of help you find the training potentially. The pre-apprenticeship programs are ones that I love, and that we'll highlight. And I don't know if it's the last week I sent out some. I think it was last week in the Parent Square post. I highlighted some pre-apprenticeship programs. Um, so definitely take a look at that for some other things to keep in mind as we move forward. Dave, you got a question you're going to jump into?
Yep, I just want to make sure I didn't want to cut off anybody. Hey, everyone, Dave Kershaw. Just want to touch base and answer a question live, which I think is relevant, and it probably many people is on many people's minds. When do students typically start to practice writing their college essays? And that's a wonderful question. And a lot of times it applies to the time when we talk timelines, whether it's essays, test prep, things like that. And we work back from sort of what we know to be the most popular deadlines, which are November 1. So if it's next November, right, we're going to work back from that as far as when the essays, when you're starting to kind of hone your essay, work on it, things like that. So in most colleges use the Common Application, and the Common Application publishes the essay prompts every August. They refresh them. Most of them stay similar. They stay the same roughly year to year, but they do update them based on what's going on in the world, things like that. And they will update those in August. So that's a good opportunity to look at those prompts now. You can look at the previous ones currently, but then in August, you can get the current prompts and then start sort of working some rough drafts, things like that, making sure that you're, have plenty of time leading up to that November deadline. You don't have to have it hammered out over the summer. You don't have to have it done by, you don't have to have it done by a certain time. You just have to, doesn't have to be done first thing in September, but it's basically, you also have an opportunity once we get back to school to have eyes and ears on it at school. English teachers, they do a lot of programming around it, or some teachers do in their curriculums in their English classes. So there's a lot of opportunity come the fall to look at it, but I definitely would recommend starting to sort of wrap your head around ideas, things like that in the summer and leading into early fall.
We also have Miss Dornbrook in the Writing Center, who's been helping the students a lot this fall with looking over their essays as well. So there are a lot of resources within the school. So before you hire anyone outside of school, just know we have a lot of us available and willing and happy to help your children through the process.
I see there's a question. It looks like there's a typed response being prepared, but just around teachers who might, students might request letters of recommendation from. Question is, can students only request recommendation letters from their junior year teachers? We always advise that it can be most helpful if students have a teacher who has taught them during their junior year, as they will have the most recent comprehensive picture of who that student is in the classroom. Some students feel like they have a teacher from ninth or 10th grade who knows them exceptionally well, but we would really encourage them to think twice about the value of that depth of relationship versus someone who knows them in a more recent context. So, sometimes a student might have the good fortune of having a teacher that they have multiple times, and, that becomes sort of someone who checks both of those boxes. But certainly that's a conversation that we can discuss with you, with your student, come springtime when it comes time to request letters of recommendation. But if there's a question specific to your student, we're happy to talk that through with you.
And I'll just point out, I just wanted to point out the difference between early decision applicants and regular decision applicants, uh, in terms of junior versus senior teachers. So if you're applying early action, early decision, a senior teacher just won't have enough time to get to know you and write a letter. So that's not a realistic timeline. So if you're applying in November, junior year teachers make the most sense. If your child is applying regular decision, January, February, something like that, there it could be possible to get to know a teacher well and then ask them a couple months ahead of time if it's possible to write a letter. But that's only for a first deadline being in January, February, something like that. So.
I see a question. Does South send out a calendar of available SAT test dates? We do have SAT dates. I believe if they are not already for the spring on the NSHS school counseling Google Calendar, we will make sure to get them on there, but I think they're already there. But you can always access the list of test dates on the collegeboard.org website. Newton South is a test center for all but the August SAT test date. So all of the school year SATs, we are a test center.
I'll highlight, we'll do an info session around testing again later this spring or, early winter, I guess. And I strongly encourage juniors take a May, June test, right? You do better on the standardized test the longer you are in school. The best way you can prepare to be really successful with the standardized test is to go to your math classes, right? Spend a lot of time reading lots of books in your English classes, and take a test in June and then again early in the fall. We'll get into some more nuanced pieces around testing later, but that's just something that's really helpful too. Don't need to take it a billion times, please. Like we talk about balance, right? There's lots of great things to be spending time on. Building relationships with those teachers who are going to write you great letters is a really great use of your time.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I see someone submitted a question asking, how many colleges students should tour as a junior. And, I would actually say there is no magic number. What we will often suggest, especially for families that are just figuring out how do we get started with this, is to take advantage of the fact that we are in a really education rich and dense area. So sometimes some day trips to just look at different types of campuses, even if they're not colleges that ultimately your student it will be interested in applying to. It can be helpful to see, a suburban campus, a more sort of rural or remote, woodsy kind of campus, to see a city campus, see campuses of different sizes. And if you're looking for suggestions just around, ways to do some of that dipstick testing with your student, we're more than happy to give you suggestions about that. But there is no magic number. The one piece of advice that I would say is no matter how far away the school is, you just want to make sure that your student has visited a campus before they deposit in the spring of their senior year. That enrolling is not the first time they're setting foot on campus of their selected option.
And I'll highlight, we've got a bunch in our backyard that are really great examples of small liberal arts colleges, of large research universities. So we have a number of half days coming up. Those are great afternoons to pop over to BC, to go to LaSalle, right? Head over to Brandeis. They're right up the street. Go into town, check out Suffolk, right? Like each of those campuses provides kind of a framework for what a urban campus might feel like, what a small liberal arts college might feel like. And that can be really helpful as you're starting this process. So then maybe in April or in May, you're like, let's do a trip. Right now, I know I really do want a small liberal arts college, or maybe I want, being on a campus is really helpful for that. So strongly encourage you, leverage those half days. Um, it's LaSalle's, you could probably walk there.
Yep. Great. Looks like the questions have slowed down coming in. We'll give it maybe just another moment if anyone has any final questions. Um, Practicing wait time. All right. Um I see another question that just came in, and actually, this is great. We will certainly address this, but also this is going to be a topic. This is a good feed teaser for our second round of junior seminars. But the question was, are just suggestions for questions to ask if you are touring a campus. I would just say. The questions that I like to ask, representatives, tour guides, alums, they all love their school and they're giving of their time to represent their school in some way. But sometimes just asking them, if there was something that you could change, what would it be? Being perceptive, looking around, checking out, I don't know how many print student newspapers there are these days, but there are still bulletin boards that have information about events that are going on around campus or things that might be topics of conversation. Sometimes, just as embarrassing as it might be to your student, striking up a conversation with someone who's not your tour guide just by asking them a question, you can really get a feel for the vibe of a campus. So, really, I wouldn't want any student to feel like if I ask this question, it's going to be the form, they're going to make a note and say, when this kid applies, we need to let them in. It's just about what they're genuinely curious about, what questions they have about, fields of interest, areas of study, residential life. They'll sort of be the best judge of what information they're going to need to feel at ease and comfortable. The biggest thing is sort of having the agency to ask the questions that are really authentic to them, because it can feel embarrassing to be the 17-year-old on a campus tour asking questions, but sometimes it's helpful to remind them that they're not likely to ever again see the other people that are on the tour with them. And they should feel free to ask any and every question they have that's going to help them, really develop a sense of if an option is right for them.
Yeah, I'll share out a doc with a bunch of questions. I would, it's what's most important to you and what are you excited about, right? And I usually encourage find, three or four that you are really important to you that will help you understand, what the learning environment might be like or what living on campus might be like that you need to know and try to ask some of those same questions across every campus so you get a touch point and you can really get a sense of like, is this a school that I want to apply to and spend the next 4 to 5 years at, or can I take it off the list? Which is great. We love finding things we don't like just as much as we do things we like.
Wonderful. Well, we thank you so much for joining us or viewing this if you weren't with us live tonight. But we really look forward to partnering with you over the next year and a half to help support your students through a really exciting time in their lives and yours. So without any further, just want to thank the counseling staff for being available tonight and doing such a great presentation. And thank all of you for joining us and say good night to you.